We are officially into the playoff stretch of the NBA season with about 20 games left or so. What I want to do, I want to give you guys 10 predictions from this point to the end of the season until we get into the big dance. Should be tons of fun. Let me know yours in the comments. But let's get into it. All right, before we get into prediction number one, I do want to throw this out there. If you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. As we're approaching 18,000 subscribers, I need you guys' help to get there. So if you enjoy, again, you guys know what to do down below. Number one, Shai Gilgeous is going to win his first ever MVP for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They will be the number one seed in the Western Conference. I guess that's another one, but that's kind of obvious. And I mean, hey, this is a team that looks the most complete. They look like they can run through the Western Conference. And to me, I think they have the best chance to represent the West in the NBA Finals unless they run into the Joker. I think, the Nuggets aren't the deepest team. And we know that the role players around Nikola Jokic are not the most consistent. But at the end of the day, if they can find some consistency around Jokic, there's nobody in the league that can guard him alone. So when you got consistency and the guys around him can knock down some shots, the Nuggets might be the biggest threat to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But we're going to talk about that in a second. But number one, Shai is going to take home the MVP. And again, the Thunder will represent the Western Conference unless they run into a pissed off Serbian. And number two, we're going to have the Los Angeles Lakers will make a deep run into the Western Conference playoffs. LeBron, Luka's back, ladies and gentlemen. And we saw that them together, we didn't know how it was going to work being ball dominant players, but it has. And they've dominated now that Luka is back. And quietly, I feel like the Lakers are top 4 seed in the Western Conference. Now, I do worry about Jackson Hayes in these bigger games, but when you match up Jackson Hayes against the Thunder, for example, I think they got a shot. I think they can match up given the experience that Luka and LeBron have, of course, in the playoffs. Some of the greatest player performers ever. And to me, I think if they match up with the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, I'm not going to say right now that they win that, but what I will say is that it might be at least a 5-6 tough game, a tough series, right, from start to finish. But the Lakers, for number two, will make a deep run to the Western Conference Finals. Staying in the Western Conference, I got some bad news. I was hyping this team up all off season, but they just haven't made that extra move that I wanted to see. I'll put it that way. The Memphis Grizzlies will be a first round exit. As of right now, they have an easier schedule to close out the season, and I think they will end up with the number 2 seed in the West. But when you look at the play-in picture, they're going to have to play a healthy Mavericks team with Anthony Davis. They're going to have to play a Warriors team, we'll talk about in a second, but they are going to be on fire at that point. They're going to have to play a Clippers team that's been very complete all year, or the Minnesota Timberwolves, which should be healthy going into that series. I think that Memphis, they've had a great year, and I was super high on them before the year, but I just don't think they have enough to compete with some of these other play-in teams in the first round. Unfortunately, Memphis, I have you going home in the first round of the NBA playoffs. I just mentioned them, but I think that the Warriors, over the next 20 to 25 games, will be the hottest team in the NBA record-wise going into the playoffs. Now, of course, they might be up there with the Cavs and the Thunder as they have just dominated everybody in the regular season, but this team looks good, man. Defensively, they're there. Draymond and Jimmy are just running around causing havoc. They're sitting in chairs, and it looks like this team just has that extra jolt of energy with Jimmy Butler coming into the team. They just look so confident, and they just look back to the Warriors that we kind of knew for many, many years. We're getting good games out of Moses Moody here recently. We're getting good games out of course, Buddy Hield is kind of going back to what he was to start the year. This Warriors team, to me, has something to prove, and Jimmy does as well. They're going to be the hottest team over the next 20 to 25 games. Now, I've mentioned it a couple times, but they play in the Western Conference. I think that the Warriors and the Timberwolves will be the two teams to come out of the play-in here in just a couple weeks. Now, at this point in time, I think it's kind of a 4-way tie between Dallas, Golden State, Minnesota, and the Clippers, being between seeds 6 and 9. So I want to see who actually makes the play-in. And of course, we'll have those predictions when that is finalized. The Kings are in the mix, but I don't think the Kings can beat any of these teams. And the Suns, of course, are also kind of in the mix. But we know the Suns' season's kind of over. We'll talk about that in a moment. The Warriors and the Timberwolves, as of right now, I'm just going to throw out a prediction and say they both come out and represent the West as the 7 and 8 seed. Let's get over to the Eastern Conference, right? We've talked a lot about the West. Let's go over to the East with my favorite team. And there's going to be an asterisk on this take here because, well, does he deserve it? Does he really not? Look, at the end of the day, Evan Mobley, to me, will be your defensive player of the year. Number one team in the Eastern Conference. They're a top 5 defense in the league, and Evan Mobley's on-off numbers are kind of insane. So Evan Mobley, to me, will take home the defensive player of the year over Jaren Jackson Jr. The question now is, does he kind of really deserve it? I think next year will be a big year, but at the end of the day, if Evan Mobley wins it, what we're going to do as Cleveland fans, we're going to get a big care package together, and we're going to ship it off to San Antonio, a get well basket to that man, Victor Wembanyama, because I think he's going to win probably the next 10 to 15 Defensive Player of the Year award. Staying on the train of my Cleveland Cavaliers, I think that it's solidified now. I think at this point in time, I know there's some injuries around some other teams in the Eastern Conference, but I think it will be the Cavs and Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're just the two most complete teams. They have their go-to guys late in games. And if you're the Cavaliers, you got a lot of different guys, right, that have stepped up this year. And then you have the addition of DeAndre Hunter. At the beginning of the season and even at the midseason mark, I said Boston was just going to run away in the Eastern Conference. And the Cavs, as a Cavs fan, it kind of hurts to say, but we were going to be frauds. At the end of the day, though, with DeAndre Hunter coming in, we have that guy that is not going to stop, but he will minimize the production of either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. He's going to give us a chance in these games because now we have another quality body to throw at some of these big-time names that Boston does have. The problem is Boston's such a well-oiled machine, and last year they won the finals without an all-NBA level player in Kristaps Porzingis. Regardless, I think this will be a very competitive series, but if I had to put money on it as of today, I think Boston still walks away as 6 as the road team in that series. I know Nico Harrison gets a lot of hate and criticism for the trade that he just pulled off, and rightfully so. Luka is going to be a generational superstar in this league when his career is said and done. But what I will say is that the Suns GM doesn't get enough hate. I understand there's a new regime there in Phoenix, but the previous regime, man, did they fumble. They had a core of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Durant, and DeAndre Ayton. I believe they were undefeated throughout a 10-game stretch with those 4 players. But then they kind of just blew it up. And it doesn't make sense why. I understand DeAndre Ayton kind of wanted out at that point in time, but that's when a GM needs to come in and smooth these situations over. That is in the past, but I will say this now. It's another season where you have 2 of the greatest one-on-one scorers of all time. And I mean that. Even Devin Booker's kind of young, but he's one of the most talented offensive scorers we've ever seen. To have both of those guys in Durant and Booker on your team and to miss the playoffs again, man, it's crazy to say that a team with this much talent is going to miss the playoffs. But the Suns, to me, will be a team that misses out of the playoffs. And as of right now, they have the hardest schedule left in the league by a wide margin. I don't even know if they make the play-in. Now, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here, maybe about 100 more, because before the season, I predicted that the Detroit Pistons not only were going to make the playoffs, but they were going to avoid the play-in. You don't believe me? Go check out the channel, right? But, I mean, hey, I was high on this team. I said J.B. Bickerstaff is a terrible coach on a contending team in Cleveland, but he's great for a rebuilding team in Detroit. And hopefully he can figure out his woes and become a contending level coach for the Pistons in the future. But as of right now, I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction. Detroit will avoid the play-in. They will be the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they will be a competitive team in the first round. I just don't know if they'll have many wins in the first round. Representing the Eastern Conference in the play-in tournament, I think it will be the Magic and the Miami Heat. As of right now, the play-in's kind of set in the Eastern Conference unless some crazy things happen. You got the Magic, you got the Heat, you got the Atlanta Hawks, and you got the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, we're not going to count them. But the Atlanta Hawks could make things interesting. They're kind of getting hot at the right time at the moment, and Trae Young is playing like a top 3 point guard in the league. But I think that neither of those teams, the Bulls or the Hawks, will beat the Miami Heat or the Orlando Magic in a one-game setting on the road, mind you. in the play-in tournament. So to me, the Magic, I know they've struggled offensively, but the defense is there, man. If they can lock in for one game, I'm going to trust Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, that duo, over Trae Young alone over there in Atlanta. And then Miami, again, well-oiled machine. Spo is a playoff coach. They're going to figure it out and come away with a big-time win to advance to the playoffs. I think right now Orlando might be the 8th seed. Miami's probably going to come away at the 7th seed and face the Boston Celtics for what seems like 100 years in a row. But that's it, man. Quick and to the point video. 10 predictions, kind of extra there, for the rest of the NBA season. So if you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hey, we're going to have a lot of fun content coming up here before the NBA season comes to a close. So if you enjoy, again, you know what to do down below. But one last thing, let me know your predictions in the comments section, whether if it's an obvious one or, hey, you want to throw a hot take out there. I'm all for it, and I'll get back to you as quick as I possibly can.